Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Sorry, I did a video from my favorite book quotes that will change your life, and I can't put it down, so I'm going to read some more from those pages. And I like this one here. It says, there must be quite a few things. Oh, this, by the way, is kind of on the subject of well-being and how you feel. There must be quite a few things a hot bath won't cure, but I don't know many of them. Here's a rule I recommend. Never practice two vices at once. And that was a very nice lady, very great sense of humour, Tallulah Bankhead. I think of going to the grave without having a psychedelic experience is like going to the grave without ever having sex. It means that you never figured out what it's all about. The mystery is in the body and the way the body works itself into nature. I'm not sure that I would go along with that, but interesting. Abstinence is as easy to me as temperance would be difficult. In wine there is truth. Says the way of alcohol over mankind is unquestionably due to its power to stimulate the mystical faculties of human nature. Usually crushed to earth by the cold facts and dry criticism of the sober hour, sobriety diminishes, discriminates and says no. Drunkenness expands, unites and says yes. It is in fact the great exciter of the yes function in man, possibly in woman as well. It brings its votary from the chilled periphery of things to the radiant core. It makes him, for the moment, one with truth. In other words, sometimes you say things that you wouldn't say when you were sober, but you mean them, but later wish you hadn't. Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. That was Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was apparently quite a drinker, I think. I drank because I wanted to drown my sorrows, but now the damn things have learned to swim. Drunkenness is temporary suicide. I like the quote of how can I remember his name? He was everybody's clown, everybody's drunk, and I've forgotten his name now, but he was the one that said, oh, Red Skelton. Red Skelton, the old movie star, actor, and a very funny man. He was a clown, he was a great character, and he said, yeah, you're not really drunk if you can lie on the ground without holding on. I like that. Are you aware that rushing toward a goal is a subliminated death wish? It's no coincidence we call them deadlines. One final paragraph of advice. Do not burn yourselves out. Be as I am, a reluctant enthusiast, a part-time crusader, a half-hearted fanatic. Save the other half of yourself and your lives for pleasure and adventure. A friend of mine always used to say that he spent 50 pounds, let's call them dollars, $50 a week on food. Let me see, what did he do? He used to say that, I have to get this the right way around and I'm messing it up. He used to say that he spent, of his pay, back then, of his pay, $100 a week would be spent on groceries, the rent, the car, stuff like that. The rest he invested in alcohol. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. That's Lao Tzu. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form of its innate violence, to allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. More than that, it is cooperation in violence. Okay. When you have grown still on purpose while everything around you is asking for chaos, you will find the doors between every room of the interior castle thrown open. The path home to your true love unobstructed after all. I like that. Besides the noble art of getting things done, there is the noble art of leaving things undone. The wisdom of life consists in the elimination of non-essentials. Man suffers because of his cravings to possess and keep forever things which are impermanent. How many times, I wonder, did you buy a new car? Buy a new car. I haven't had too many new cars in my life. They're usually used, but some of them might have pretended to be new. And boy, I would sit in that car and drink in the sounds, the feel of the steering wheel, the smooth leather of the seats when they were leather, and I would just love it. I would look through the windows, I would look out at the world from my new car, and 2 weeks later, when it broke down, it would be a heap of crap. That's possessions for you. I make the most of all that comes and the least of all that goes. You cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. Now this is very true. Listen to this. Advice is what we ask for when we already know the answer but wish we didn't. The worst men often give the best advice. You know, that's very true. I can remember learning a really big lesson on persistence. When I was in California, when I first arrived there, and I was a single parent, and I was with my kid, and I used to actually find, when I picked him up from school, one of our little simple pleasures was we would drive to the nearest supermarket, and we would sit on the ledge outside the door where the ice cream counter was, and we'd have an ice cream. And we were there once, and I watched a guy doing what the Americans call it panhandling. And a panhandler is somebody who is begging, and some of these guys have been proved to be very successful at what they do, and they would dress very simply and not too well, and then they beg for money, and then they would walk about a quarter of a mile to where they had parked their Ford Explorer and they'd change some of the clothes and climb in and drive away with the AC on. Now, this particular guy, I watched him approach someone who had just come out of the supermarket, and he went out. He said very politely, "Excuse me, sir, could you spare $1?" The man said no. So he said, thank you, sir." And he turned straight away, and behind the man, following up, there was a lady. And he said, "Excuse me, ma'am, could you spare a little change?" And I think that she said no as well. He didn't stop at all. The next person was coming very close. He wasn't embarrassed by the fact that he'd been turned down by two. And he went up to the third person, "Excuse me, sir, could you spare a little change?" And the man reached into his pocket and he pulled out some change and gave it to him. And then he walked on, and the next person that came out, he went up and said, "Excuse me, ma'am, could you spare a little change?" And she gave him. And I actually realized that he was a man who understood the idea of numbers. And if you do something often enough, you will become both good at what you do and successful, as long as you haven't decided that it's something that is insane, like, I don't know, going shark fishing in your underwear or something. And he didn't get discouraged by being rejected. It didn't mean anything at all to him. He knew that during the day, I'm making an assumption here, he knew that during the day he would ask possibly 100 people, let's keep the math simple for me, he would ask 100 people for a little change. And out of the 100 people, let's say that 60 people would say okay and give him $1. At the end of that day, he would have received $60 or more or less. And if he did that every day and went out and just did it every day, then he'd be able to live quite comfortably. Just think about this. If you knew, if it were possible, if God called you on your cell phone and said, "Look, I've been thinking about your case, you deserve a hand up. So here's the deal. If you will make 7,000 phone calls, I will guarantee that you will be totally successful at anything that you do." Now, I picked 7,000 because that was the number that I heard or read somewhere that Colonel Sanders made before he got somebody to fund his special recipe. So, what would you do? If you knew that all you had to do was make the number of calls, you'd pick up the phone, "Hello, yeah, oh, okay, thank you." Pick up the phone, pick up the phone, pick up the phone, pick up the phone, and you do as many as that, because you would know, you'd be saying, "Oh wow, 6,972, near the end." And you do it. It's only the unknown of never knowing whether you're going to succeed. But actually, if you're totally committed, you can know that you will succeed. I close my book, Quotes That Will Change Your Life. My life is changing all the time, I think. So, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Hope you enjoyed this late night chat. Bye for now.